Hey guys, welcome back to Coliseum Forum. If you've joined us previously, we've had Matt Rosenberg, Jim's up. I'm really excited about our guest today. We have Joe Pruett, who is publisher at Aftershock currently. We're also joined today by President of Coliseum, a lot of like your regular everyday comic book fan. That term is sort of like nebulous then, right? So can you kind of describe what does a publisher do?
A little bit of everything. I help oversee the line. I help with the decide what books we will publish and the schedule, stuff like that. I do a lot of conversations with like say down distribution and a lot with retail friends like you guys here. And, kind of like a public person for the company itself.
Awesome. So someone like a producer for like on a movie set, right?
Sure, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. So you started, but you didn't start as a publisher, right? You started as a writer in the business.
Actually, I started the business back in, I want to say 89, which I hate to admit. I actually started working for Bob Bird as an art assistant.
Okay.
So I broke in thinking I was going to be an artist. Quickly realized when I first meet people like Brian Ball and Dave Stevenson, the first people I meet in comics, that I was not going to be an artist and that I was going to be a writer. I decided that. And then quickly I went from being a writer to being an editor, to being a creative director, to being, another writer again, and then being a publisher. And that's while publishing, back into writing, and then back into publishing again at Aftershock.
So all over the industry. So it sounds like you've worn pretty much any of the hats you can wear. What's been your favorite one so far?
Um, I like being a writer, honestly, the most. But I like it all. I mean, I'm a business persona and I am like, creative persona. I like that both at the same time. As much as I like writing, I do have a family. I have 6 kids, and writing is an up and down career.
Sure.
You have too much work, all of a sudden you have no work, and it's a roller coaster all the way through. Publishing is a steady job, editing is a steady job, and also like big put projects together in that way. So that's also a creative side. And I've also been a designer, and I did an art book line, which that's why I published my part with Image myself, and then with IDW for several years, where I put out 10 different art books, and I designed all those myself as well as editing them, put them together. So it just sort of many hats. I get bored doing one, so I have to make sure I can do a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Okay. So I know there were some announcements today from Aftershock with some new releases coming out. You want to tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, we had one this week, and we had one last week, and I think we'll have another one next week. The Kaiju score, it was I think announced today was James Patrick writing. I think I read Bro on art. It looks like another fun project that we'd like to do. We did one last week. I was started playing all of a sudden because the days started running together on me. Okay.
Fair. I'm pretty sure it's Monday or Tuesday. It's one of those days.
Yeah, but we've been doing sometimes because of Abstract in general, and unlike a lot of other competitors, we are business as usual right now. The only difference is we're not printing. Into that's actually starting to get back up again. We took the last month and a half off from printing, but we kept our writers and artists and everybody working, staff still working, no one's laid off or furloughed or anything like that. And we're making sure everybody, as we get paid, and strange enough, when you start paying people, a lot more people start coming in your direction as well when they hear that. So we get a lot of creative pitches. We usually do a creative FME pitch, a conference call like every 2 weeks, and now we do it every week. We get some new quality ones in, and I have another one tomorrow with another dozen to go over. So it's a challenging time right now. It's also kind of exciting time right now. So when we come out of this, I think we're going to be geared up, stronger than before.
With that said, we're going to go ahead and jump to Phil because it looks like he has a question for you. Yeah, so I think you were running X-Men, specifically Cable, in the late 90s, right?
Yeah, around 99, 2000, that time frame.
So when those guys at that point, I mean, the X-Men were in 1963, so we're looking at, 30 years at that point, of character development. How do you even begin to tackle like a monumental task like that?
Well, so when I got the job, I was totally surprised. They came to me and asked me about working for them. The X-Men stuff, because I spent the 90s being a total independent comic creator.
Sure.
And, I worked at Caliber Comics as a creative director there and editor and stuff, and a writer there and the English as well. And I'll be honest, those superheroes, if I grew up with Marvel Zombie, and in the early to mid 80s, when I was starting independent comics, I kind of just left that all behind and went straight into the independent world.
Right.
And I wasn't reading superhero comics anymore. Short issue was, but my editor at the time added like a dialogue into something with Rogue. So it must have been Magneto Rex. And I read it, and actually I got to correct him. I said, no, actually, Rogue, she was in the Savage Land, blah, 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 this. And he said, oh, wait, you're right. And so I corrected the editor.
So, okay, and excuse my like age difference and not knowing, but at that point in the 90s, were you guys still working out of like the Marvel bullpens, or had we moved to email and things like that by that point?
No, I was in the bullpen. I lived in Atlanta, and we don't have to remember back in those days. It was all done, honestly, that's how I do fax machine a lot.
Okay.
If I want to talk to my editor or whatever, my creators, I would call them, but I would send my script over to the fax machine.
Okay.
They would send back to me, corrections on the fax machine, and then I'd say, well, they get the artist in, for instance, say Rob Liefeld, when we do a game together, they would fax me over the layouts or the pencils.
Sure.
And it'd be like, roll pages, and I would go through then, I would like put the word balloons, I would dialogue it, like we did the old model style, and I would put where the word balloons would go, and then fax it back to the Marvel offices.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool.
So it wasn't old school, but it sure as heck is not today's school.
Right. Do you get to work on the editorial side at all with Aftershock? Do you get to work with your creators and things like that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I work on a lot of special projects.
Sure.
So like the last couple of years, I did a book called Shock. It's a hardcover anthology.
Yeah.
Apparently, Negative Burn was what made my career at Caliber, and I just can't get the thousands out of my system, so I felt like I had to do one. So I did a yearly 2-volume set of Shock, which I edited and put together myself, and then I started WOGN hardcover line, original standalone stories. We did 4.
You've been doing it all. Right, now,
Yeah.
let's jump in the way back machine for a minute. Bill Shamus from Diamond Comics retired, has been putting out some great stories about the industry.
Yeah, I've been reading some of those. Yeah.
Yeah, his early days in it, we started distributing comics when he was literally a kid, pretty much.
Like 13 when I started Pacific Comics.
Yeah, Pacific Comics. So He's got some great stories about what motivated them to do this, why they wanted to get into publishing. Now, you were one of the founders of Caliber Comics.
I wasn't a fan. Gary Reed started Caliber in what, 88, 89? I came around Caliber around 91. When I started as a writer briefly, and then started Negative Burn in 93. So I take it back. I started writing in 92. Okay. So Negative Burn started in 93, and then I went on staff, kind of after that a little bit.
So how did you end up getting into Caliber? How did you break into comics per se?
Well, again, I broke in with Bob Burden as his assistant, and then through Bob, I got to meet his friends. And again, in a lot of industries, it's who you know. So I would go to start doing conventions with them, meet people. I started meeting people, hanging out with people, Marvel editors, Fabian, and Spin Larson, who was a PR guy there, a sales guy there, and go to dinners and be there with Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti and other people. And so I started making relationships. And when I started deciding I was going to write, ran into Paul Jenkins, of all people, who was at a company called Tundra, which is Kevin Eastman's company he did after the Ninja Turtles started up. And Paul was an editor there. And so Paul liked the project I was putting together, and I was spearheading at Tundra for it before eventually Tundra kind of went away. So I'm not sure. I think Paul might have sent it to Gary at Caliber, or the artist I was working with at the time sent to Gary. I just got a phone call one night from Gary Reed, just calling about the project we had pitched to him. I was like, well, I didn't pitch it to you. So Rich, I actually turned him down initially because here I am as a relative unknown, and my first gig possibility was a big company, which Tundra was at the time. I kind of felt like Caliber was kind of like the minor leagues. So I was a little full of myself. So I kind of passed on it. But after a month or two, I kind of reconsidered it, and I reached back out to Gary and said, okay, let's go ahead and do this. And that began a relationship that lasted until his death a few years ago. I always give credit to Bob Burden for giving my starting comics by hiring me. I just wrote him basically a letter in the mail. So I just graduated college. I want to bring into comics, and I see you as assistants. He called me up 3 weeks later and met me in person and offered me a job. And then, so Bob gave my story by saying Gary gave me my career. Because Gary believed in me and my visions. So he gave me my first book. And then when that was kind of trudging along, and I did this fellow friends of mine, my brother, to do Negative Burn. And he gave him to go ahead and do that. And every time I had an idea, he would go, okay, do it. Okay, do it. But then I became like a talent scout at Caliber, where I started reaching out and grabbing. Caliber at the time was kind of like a place where you started career, moved on. And so my vision was, I want to make it a place where you have a career, you can make it have fun. So you can make your money at Marvel DC, but come do your personal projects with us. But it wasn't, well, I guess English was around at that time, or right after when I started there. But so yeah, so I just started reaching out to people. I got the Alan Moores and the Brian Bollins and the Neil Gaimans and the Garth Ennis, and they got to a point, Mobius, it got to a point it became kind of games like, who can I not get? So I would just reach out to everybody. Will Eisner, I'll reach out to. I got a letter from him. I have somewhere saved. And even when I was doing Negative Burn, I actually reached out to John Mellencamp, who is besides being a singer, obviously, is an artist. And I've seen some of his art paintings somewhere, and I just reached out to say, look, I just want to use one of your paintings for a cover. And it's funny because my wife's second or third cousin was in his band when he started up. She's from Indiana as well, a little small town there where he's from. So we went through her grandmother to get his home address so I could set up a care package to try to talk him to give permission to use one of his covers. He never responded to me, but again, it was a game. Who can I get? Who can I not get? So it was a lot of fun.
Home champions and not get.
Right. The worst they can tell you is no, or totally ignore you altogether. That's my motto.
So you actually answered my next question. Negative Burn, that book was huge, right? You guys worked with everybody. I was going to ask, was there a get that you weren't able to get? And it sounds like Mr. Mellencamp was the answer there.
Well, Eisner was one I really wanted to get. Who did I not get from Negative Burn? I got Gaiman, Mobius. Garth was never in Negative Burn, but he did give us. I got a project with him, John McRae. I brought over from the UK when I went and visited there, so that worked out fine. I don't know, but the thing about Neighbor, I look back now, and like #1 had a cover from Mike Ringo before he was Mike Ringo.
Right.
It had 2 covers. The other cover was by Andrew Robinson, who went on to do a lot of stuff. I did Dusty Star with him in Image back in the day too. That was his first published work ever. Was a cover to Neighbor #1, which I have hanging on my wall in my office. John Cassidy's first published work was in Neighbor 28. Paul Pope had very early work in Negative Burn, and he was my kind of go-to guy for a while there. If I had pages to fill, he'd go, "How many pages do you need this month?" And I go, "I need 6 or 8." He goes, "Okay, I'll give it to you next week." So it was fun days. It was exciting days, and it was a lot of enthusiasm out of youth, which I still like to try to think I have today. I know I don't, but I like to think I do.
I mean, when you were working on that book, I mean, like you said, like a lot of those guys weren't like Paul Pope wasn't Paul Pope Brett, right?
Right.
I would assume Bendis wasn't
Smith,
Bendis, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Working with those guys really early on in your career, was there ever a time you sat there and you were like, wow, that guy's going to be somebody later on?
Well, those guys always thought had the potential, like I said, a Cassidy or a Bendis. I remember talking to Brian and saying, because Brian was a writer and an artist at the time. And he was more of a photorealistic artist, so he used photo reference. And I remember telling Brian, "Your writing's better your art. Not just saying your art's bad." I said, "Your writing's better your art. You should work on that. Focus on that more." David Mack. I remember seeing David Mack come up, and he had his flaws, but he definitely had the potential, and he became, I think, a spectacular artist. Mike Perkins, who I think I was his first American publisher. He did Kilroy was here with me. And did some stuff in Negative Burn as well. And Brian was a guy who always had, Mike was a guy who always had talent. It wasn't too much a cross gen. We actually, just all of a sudden became an amazing artist. You got to work with all those guys there and learn so much and just took what he learned and blossomed. He's now one of my favorite artists out there. There's a guy named Philippe Saudier, who you probably wouldn't know. He did very little here in America. He did some stuff in Negative Burn with me. And then he did a book called Legend Lord, I offered him up for it. And now he's a French, he lives up in Belgium, but he works just with French publishers, and he's just amazed me today. When I realized, I looked right, he was a wannabe Mark Silvestri artist. And I remember he brought me the samples at Dragon Con one year, and he had these Mark Silvestri, no offense, Philippe, if you're listening, Mark Silvestri, really horrible, drawing, wannabe drawings. And then he had like this little Mobius type style of a little short story. And I was like, "Oh wait, forget this stuff. Do this stuff. This is your passion. This is what you're really good at." And so we kind of get to the point we kind of merged the two of them together for a little while.
Sure.
And we would have problems with his faces. Everything else would be great, but his faces would be kind of wonky or not really, perspective.
Sure.
But when he moved back to France, again, like Perkins did at Preston, he just started working with all those guys and now it's just freaking amazing. I've been trying to get him to come back to the States and do some stuff.
Right.
He's just so busy and gets so well paid over there. Didn't have time for him anymore. We're still afraid. Actually, I saw him for the first time in like 20 years when I was over in, I guess it was in Belgium. I did a tour last year. I was in France for the Paris Comic Con, and then our French publisher over there, he translates, took me on a tour from a few cities, including Belgium, and I got to meet him for the first like 20 years.
That's very cool.
Kind of nice.
So one of the things we had also talked about with some of our other pros we've had on, it sounds like you do the con circuit. What has been your weirdest convention experience?
You won't get sued for telling.
Well, there's a few that pop in my head. There's one where I was at Dragon Con, I think it was, and my brother Jim, who's a publisher at Scout Comics, you should actually get him up here. I think I had James already. He was sitting next to me, and some girl came up to him and kind of leaned in, and like she was gonna kiss him on the cheek or something, and said she bit his ear.
What?
And said, "How'd you like that?" I was like, okay, that's just kind of weird. But then I did a little show in Detroit, and I was sitting next to Pete Craig Russell and Dave Sim, and this guy comes up to Craig and says, how much for your sock? And he's like, what? And me and Dave Simmons were just sitting there, and we just started busting out laughing. I'm like just cracking up. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Right.
He's asking about Craig Russell's sock. He goes, how much for your sock? And he goes, well, I don't know. He's like looking at me like for answers, and I'm like, sell it to him. Tell him. He goes, I'll give you $20 for him. I don't remember what he said, but I said, give you $20 for it. He goes, what? Craig, you can buy another set of socks for $20. Sell them and your sock. And we're just laughing over here. And so he takes the sock off and sells it to the guy, and then he has him sign it. And I just thought that was so hilarious and so bizarre. That it's a good story for life now.
That's a good one. That's a really
I gotta
good one.
know, why did he do that song? I just have to know.
Right.
Oh, so it's so good, you know.
Yeah.
Really watched it.
He's got like a weird scrapbook at home. It's just creators' socks. He pulls out every
Probably so. Probably goes for the news place stuff. But that was just the weirdest thing I think I remember. There's others, but those are two that popped out: a biting and a sock selling.
Nice.
Yes, Bill.
Hey, there's a lot of artists right now who are currently pencils down. So what's out there right now that you'd really like to do something with?
Well, I've been making some calls. Well, there are a lot of pencils down for artists and writers. I guess that pop down. So we do have some writers who are a lot easier to get. So I'm asking writers to do give me short-term stories, short, finite. That way they can, when they're able to work in the bigger companies again, they can have already finished this and not have to worry about trying to overlap. Artists, probably a lot of the artists I really want to work with, I'm reaching out to, is that they're not so much pencils down, because if you're a prominent artist that I really want to work with, people are keeping them employed and making sure they're not being penciled down. But if there's any artists or writers out there who want to work with me or Aftershock, now's your time to reach out. But we are taking submissions. We are hiring artists, cover artists, etc. So reach out to us, and now's your chance. We'll help you out.
So you publish quite a few books through Aftershock right now, and you've written a few of them yourselves. Some you didn't write. What's one of your favorite books that you really look forward to seeing every month?
Sure. Yeah, the only one I wrote at Aftershock so far has been Black Eyed Kids, which is on a pause after 15 issues. I have to do the real work, My favorite books out there right now, I really love Walk Through Hell with Garth Ennis, which is finished up his publisher run. And a matter of fact, I think the hardcover is in stock at Dime. That'll be out to your stores for too. I know you're not a big hardcover fan, your store still, but I love hardcovers.
I love
the yeah, the trades are volumes 1 and 2 are both out as well. It's a 12-issue series. So I love that one. I love the American Monster, one of our early titles, which unfortunately was never able to be finished, but it was really my favorite title of the time. Replica is another one that was my favorite title of the beginning. There's stuff like Shipwreck and the Warren Ellis Philhester book, which is a really bizarre book, but I like stuff like that.
You guys have Animosity, Walk Through Hell. Those are two I'm a fan of.
Oh, and yeah, of course, Animosity is out there. Dark Ark as well, too. Are bestsellers.
I actually just learned about the phenomenon, the Black Eyed Kids phenomenon, like and so I'm actually going to read that comic specifically now because I was at a party. They started talking about it, and I was like, "What's a B?" They kept calling it saying BEK, right? And I'm like, "What's a BEK?"
Yeah, BEK. Yeah.
And so, can you give us kind of a primer on what a BEK is? Because it is probably the creepiest thing I've ever heard.
Well, nobody ever knows what there is. It's a weird thing. I came across the idea that where I was scrolling through Facebook on my homepage, and something came up, 50 urban legends for 50 states, and of course that stuff interested me, so I clicked on it. And I think Iowa had something called Black Eyed Kids. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And I started researching myself and said, this is so creepy. How have I never heard of this? It's been going on for 29 years all over the country. And I said, well, okay, well, this is a great visual, and here's my version of it. And when I started writing it, a paranormal investigator who had written a book about the Black Eyed Kids actually reached out to me and sent me his book. and started pimping my book out for him on his websites and stuff. And
Sure.
so I did return the favor. So like around issue, I don't know, 10 or 11, I started giving him a couple pages back of each issue where he could actually do a real life encounter story and pimp his book out.
Right.
You know, you can order from him here, you know, and I thought it's so creepy. But if you look up, Black Eyed Kids are basically like teenagers, usually traveling like 2 or 3 at a time. Olive colored skin, monotone voices, wearing clothing usually about 10 years out of date. And then they come to your, like late at night, they come to your door or knock on your window or call you in the parking lot. And like a vampire, they make an excuse and ask permission to come in. Okay, I use your phone to call my mom. I got left behind, et cetera, so I can get a ride home. And before you notice anything else unusual about them, your body kind of reacts to them like you're frightened, but don't know why. And then you realize they have no solid black eyeballs. And then from the same person will not just slowly, but quickly close the door if it's the front door, and then go hide in the closet. That's what I would do personally.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, it's been going on forever. And there's been some little documentaries. It was on Ancient Aliens TV show. And, some people think they're aliens, some people think they're demons. So, interdimensional beings. Who knows? Nobody knows what they're. And it's not a lot of stories where people actually have invited them in and then told a story afterwards.
Right. Isn't that the hook is like if you let them in, you just disappear after that?
Perhaps. You know, because who knows? Who knows? If you let them in, do we know how we know that they came to your house?
Sure.
It might just be a missing person. You know?
Right.
There's one story I saw where somebody did let one in, and then they came like frozen for like 45, 50 seconds. And then when they came unfrozen, they kind of just ran out the back door and ran away. And they came back with friends, and they were gone. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to know what happens, but like in the book that David wrote, and is a story like a BK is like somebody's in a hotel room, like I don't know, I think it's a 5th floor or something, and then it's a balcony, and they hear like a knock on the door on the balcony window, and it's like this kid with black eyes on the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go back and look, later, and it's gone. But I don't know. It's like the vampire thing kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Sure.
It's like they can't come in unless you invite them.
Right.
So when I wrote the series and stuff, I use that. You know, that's part of my motif. They can't come in unless you invite them in.
Right.
So I have in my stories, I have the base that they can possess other kids and turn them into Black Eyed Kids.
Right.
So that's how I allowed people to be invited to the house at the time.
Yeah. This is that's probably the scariest like spooky urban legend I've heard in a while. So the fact that there's a comic, a really common question we get in the stores is like, hey, what's a good horror comic? And that's my new go-to because I'm going to be
great.
Yeah,
I missed it. I got a lot more stuff to tell.
So we kind of touched on this a little bit ago with Negative Burn and getting to work with essentially an all-star creative cast throughout the years on that. I know Negative Burn kind of moved around publishers. Is there any chance we could see a renaissance for Negative Burn?
Well, Negative Burn is the 2 different publishers. It was at Caliber. I did the first 50 issues at Caliber. I think I made my career. And I was told when I started, it actually started off as a one-shot. Initial idea that it was going to be a one-shot. Then became an oversized one-shot. Then became a bi-monthly series. And then became a monthly series. This is all before I even started the first issue came out.
Hey.
I kept getting, who can I get? And then also I get all these people. Let's just make this ongoing thing. Then it became an oversized monthly comic. So I did 50 monthly issues. So it would never last. A black and white comic with no theme to it.
Right.
Because I just published what I like.
Right.
And so I said, okay, I'll show challenge accepted 50 issues. I quit them on terms. When I started Desperado Publishing, again, I partnered with Image for the first couple of years, myself for a couple of years, and IDW for 4 or 5. I remember talking to Eric Stevens at one point, and he kind of suggested why you do Negative Burn again. And I was like, well, I was a little hesitant to it, but I did do it. But I'll be honest, I wasn't happy with the results of how I did it. The first one I thought I had a place in a little historical place in comics. If that's not so conceited, sorry. But the second one doesn't. I mean, it started off well, but it got to a point where I didn't have the time and effort to put into it like I did the first time.
Right.
But I was running a publishing company by myself.
Right.
With a couple of employees, but beforehand I was an editor and I wasn't the publisher,
right.
The owner.
Right.
So I realized my time didn't allow me the flexibility to make this a really good product. So I think I ran 21 issues the second run, plus 2 original trades. but I wasn't really happy with it, so I kind of think I didn't want to ruin the legacy, I guess,
Right.
anymore. So that's why I stopped it. If I was to do it now, I don't know if I would do it again because again, the first run has a good legacy.
Sure.
When I did anthology here after, I didn't bring Native Burn into it. I started doing called Shot.
Right.
So I guess I want to take another legacy, another title.
Sure. Sure.
I am very happy with the Shock books. And again, I'm a hardcover guy. I like the hardcover. It's a European sport now. I was trying. I'm not saying that it works here in the States, but I would want to at least try it. And the artists and the writers love the format because it really showcases the art, the story.
Sure.
And if I could sell more copies of it, I'll keep doing it.
For sure. Absolutely.
And again, I do the same thing. I said, who can I get? And I get R.L. Stein, no game, no et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Again. But I also realized the limitation I would have, so I've done it yearly so far.
Sure. Right.
Instead of monthly.
So with we talked a little bit about how right now if you're an artist and you're looking to do something, this is kind of the time because people are looking for artists. What would you say to somebody like a young aspiring artist? Because I mean your story's a little bit different, right? You wrote a letter and then all of a sudden you're working on Flaming Carrot, right? But now, like what do you see? Like what's the best advice you could give to somebody that wants to break into the industry?
First thing I would say is get a real job first. Something can pay your bills. You can make a living in comics.
Sure.
But don't think you're going to make a living in comics. It's really tough. It's a cutthroat business. There's always 10 people, 100 people behind you wanting your job.
Sure.
There's going to be 10 people right behind you who are better than you who want your job. So only do it if you love it and you have a passion for it, and don't expect to have it support you.
Sure.
So that's my first advice I give. That's real life. I mean, I've been in this business now for 31 years. And 31 years in working in comics. I've worked full-time in comics for 7. And 5 of those in the last 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So all the other years, I had a full-time job. Or I think of that. Most of those years, I had a full-time job. Some of those years, I was trying to make it in comics and working here and there, and not be able to support myself, my family, as much as I wanted to.
Right.
So, just be honest, but so 7 years at 31, I've been full-time in comics, 5 straight now. So again, even I'm in comics now, but I'm in comics on this end of the business more than anyone creating the business because that's the steady income, I guess, if you can make it.
Right.
But as far as like an artist or a writer, I always tell writers, I don't know if this was true. See, the Aftershock, we ask writers, it's better for you if you come to us without an artist attached, but we have our own artists we want to work with and a lot of connections we want to work with.
Sure.
But for most starting up writers, I said find an artist who has been working in the business to partner with. Because I can look at a pitch from a artist and in 30 seconds tell you if I like them or not, and if this person is big enough to be published.
Right.
A writer, yes, sit down and read the script.
Right.
And let's be honest, I'm a writer. Reading unsolicited scripts are not my first priority.
Right.
You have to invest the time into each one. They have to figure out, is there something in here that I really think is going to make it? So it's more of a work.
Sure.
Artists, you're either good enough or you're not.
Right.
So if a writer find an artist who's already been working in there, that way they'll look at the artist, and if they like the art, they'll look at your script.
Right. Okay. With Aftershock, and this could be your personal opinion or Aftershocks, but this is something we've talked about in detail in the past. What is your personal stance on the direct market versus digital, which is becoming a bigger conversation with the current situation?
I'm a print guy. Always have been. Digital to me is still in the infancy stage. To be honest, no, digital is not a big revenue generator for Aftershock.
Sure.
I don't see it being that way anytime soon.
Right.
So I don't think anybody has to worry about it's going to be a digital first company.
Sure. Sure.
So I prefer the book in the hand, the book to put on my bookshelf. or my comic collection at my storage unit.
Like the hardcovers.
Right, the hardcovers. That's why I like hardcovers. But yeah, I mean, digital. I think eventually it's going to be a lot bigger, but comics are the collectible too. I don't see the collector side of comics going to digital. I see the young readers maybe going to digital, growing to digital because that's what they grew up with a lot. But it's just we have to keep getting people into the comic shops in order to keep them, keep them that way.
Well, as we're starting to run towards the end of this, does Aftershock have any TV or movie properties, or is there anything going in that direction these days?
Yeah, we've had 5 picked up so far. Of those 5, and a couple still kind of active. Animosity is at Legendary Pictures. I know the first draft of the script has been turned in, so it's still active. We have God Country, which a book the Image published that we were able to sell to Legendary Pictures as well for Dottie Cates. That's also still there. Dottie actually did the screenplay for that. That's still active. We had Lost Sea Explorer has been picked up by Universal, and the Normals have been picked up by Fox, so those are expired. There's 2 or 3 that we'll probably have announcements on the next month or so. So there's still a lot of activity there. I just read an article today. I don't know where I read it at, but it's during this time. It seems like Hollywood is really reaching out and wanting to buy a lot of stuff right now. And not just us, but elsewhere as well. So they have nothing else to do. They can't film, so they actually buy projects.
A lot of opportunities there, I guess.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. A lot going on a daily basis. Put it that way.
Well, thank you very much for coming in,
No
Joe.
problem.
I always love hearing stories about the early days and how everyone got started and what prompted you to come into this and that type of thing. So that's always cool to hear.
I appreciate having you on, and thanks for supporting us at Aftershock. And again, let us know if we can ever help in any way. And we are moving forward as always, and ready to help you guys. We have people coming to your store. We have Aftershock Army ambassadors who are coming to the retail stores and talking to you guys personally. And then, of course, I'll come down anytime you want me to.
Awesome.
I like traveling. Eventually I'll travel. Not right now. I'll hold off a little longer.
Fair. Yeah, we might want to wait a little bit. Joe, it was great getting to speak with you today. Phil, thanks for joining us. Guys, it's another Coliseum Forum. We'll be back tomorrow. But once again, Joe Pruett, publisher at Aftershock. Thanks, Joe.
I appreciate it, guys. Have a great time. All right.
We'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
All right, cheers.